Okay, for everyone that may not know me, my name is Glenn Main. I am a mortgage originator for 7 of the 8 offices in central Pennsylvania. Um, I pretty much cover every office except for the Carlisle office right now. And I also do a couple offices that Howard Hanna just bought out up in Lebanon and other agencies that contact me. But specifically, I'm more in the Camp Hill, Colonial Park, Hershey, Lancaster, Shrewsbury, York, and Hackstang. So some of you already see me, some of them we've done deals. And I'm just going to go over briefly what the products are out there and maybe open up for some questions as we go through each series, because if I go through everything, you may not remember all the questions. So we're going to touch on 4 bases today. The first one's conventional. The second one's FHA. The third one's VA. And the fourth one's PHFA. Now there's a fifth one, USDA, but USDA has changed their guidelines dramatically this year because of COVID. And that would take a whole session just to teach you USDA. If you have any, and I'll touch bases, just little things what USDA does do, what they do. But if you have any questions afterwards, you can call me and you want specific training on USDA, or if you want more training individually on these products I'm getting ready to go over, please reach out to me and I can go through everything with you in more detail. So the first one is conventional. Now, conventional is the easiest loan usually to get done. And the reasons it's the easiest loan is because underwriting guidelines are just easier. And what I mean by easier is that there's not as many overlays that the lender puts down as Howard Hanna or as what Freddie and Fannie puts down as guidelines. Basically, appraisals are more relaxed. And when you're doing an appraisal, like on a government loan, they're a little bit more strict on certain things. Conventional is very simple. As long as it's not a safety issue, like really big safety issue, like the roof or the foundation, it doesn't need a lot of things like the other loans do. And the appraisal companies, honestly, when they go out there, it's the quickest appraisal they'll ever do. I've seen conventional appraisals be done in about 15 minutes, where the government appraisals usually take about 30 minutes to an hour because they're more detailed. And underwriters are a little bit more relaxed on the appraisals that they get in, especially like repairs or cosmetic stuff. So the next one is that usually the lowest interest rates. Conventional usually starts about a 680 credit score or higher. Now, if you're at 680, of course, your interest rate's not going to be as low, but if you get to 740 plus, 740 is like really our cutoff. If you have 740 credit score, you go to 800, it's the same interest rate. And the interest rates today are about 2.75 to 2.65, just depending on how much money you're going to put down on a purchase. And on the appraisal or on the sales contract, the great thing about that is if they don't elect any inspections, we don't need any inspections conventional. A lot of realtors ask me, well, conventional doesn't need a pest inspection and doesn't need this inspection. Correct. But if you mark it on the sales contract, we are going to need that inspection because that's pretty specific when it comes to underwriters looking at sales contracts. So 99.9% of the time, we don't need any inspections when it comes to home inspections. And again, that's like pest inspections and other inspections radon that the borrower may elect or not to elect to. Usually about 3% seller help is the common. Now you can get more with conventional, and you can actually get up to 10% seller help on a conventional loan, which is kind of strange, but you can. As long as you put more than 10% down on a conventional product, you can get up to 6%. If you put 20% down on a conventional product, you can get, I know this is crazy, up to 10% seller help, which will probably never happen, but the more common is about 3% seller help. Not in this market, of course, but the markets do change from time to time. And a lot of the conventional deals that I used to do, we're getting, 1, 2, 3% seller help. And last but not least on conventional, the mortgage insurance. Okay, so once it reaches 80%, so the borrower has 20% equity in the home, that mortgage insurance monthly is going to drop off. Now that's determined by the lender, not the buyer or the client. So when they determine when you have 20% equity and your LTV is at 80%, that MI will drop off. and if you put somebody with a 5% down payment, and they only have 5% in equity, it takes about 5 to 7 years, depending on the market. You put someone with about 10% down, it takes about 3 to 5 years to drop the MI off. And if you put someone down about 15%, it takes about, I've seen it drop off as quickly as 24 months. Most lenders want the mortgage insurance on there for at least 24 months. So if you put down 19% or 18%, and you're that 2% difference of having that 20% in equity, it's going to take about 24 months before the lender will drop that mortgage insurance off. It's the only loan out there that does that. All the other loans, that mortgage insurance is going to stay on the loan until the life of the loan, except for VA, because VA doesn't have mortgage insurance. But the other loans, FHA and USDA, the only way you can get rid of that mortgage insurance is to refinance.
And Glenn, and just interject, you can also refi into conventional or just refi within conventional. And if like in a market right now, the way homes have appreciated, you may hit that 80% position just because of appreciation in your home.
Correct. I've probably done.
My neighbors are doing it right now. They bought through us. They bought FHA. They're refining after. They're refining after 5 years, and they may actually get to an 80% position.
Correct. About 35 refis I've done so far this year. I would say 25 of them I've eliminated their mortgage insurance, either going from a government loan to conventional or going from conventional to conventional, because they have gained so much equity in the home in the last 24 months or 12 months that now their rates are much lower and their house is worth a lot more. And a lot of times I'm eliminating this mortgage insurance on a refinance and there's not even an appraisal needed. Like literally I can do a refinance with majority of my clients and not even need the appraisal. And that's just on a refinance, like I said, but you can, it's the only way you're going to eliminate it if you're doing a government loan. But with conventional, if you want it, say maybe you put 5% down or 10% down 5 years ago or 3 years ago, today's market, we could refinance them and eliminate the mortgage insurance altogether. A lot quicker than if the lender was to do it. So that's conventional in a nutshell. There's a lot of other things conventional does. I could be here all day explaining to you, but just want to open it up real quick. Any questions on conventional? Well, that was easy. FHA. So FHA is a standard government loan. And with FHA there's a lot of things that FHA is doing right now. And the market used to be about, this is the way the market used to be split. It used to be about 60%, 65% conventional, about 30 to 25% FHA, maybe a little bit less, maybe 27%. And then the rest was everything else, USDA, VA. FHA in 2021 is going to actually take more market share from conventional. And the reason being is because they've lowered their credit scores a little bit lower than normal. Now, COVID, what we're going through right now is a little bit different, but hopefully this will pass. And the FHA guidelines is a lot of times the first-time home buyers that don't have a lot of money, they only need to put down 3.5% versus a conventional loan, which is about 5%. So it helps them out a lot. And hopefully in the future, you're going to start seeing more seller assists when this market ever changes over to a buyer's market. Which it will one day. And then you're going to start seeing sellers being able to give up to 6% seller help, which is really nice with FHA and only putting 3.5% down. Government loans are a lot more harder to get done, and there's a lot of reasons why, but basically it's the guidelines.
Glenn, can you talk, I don't mean to keep interjecting, but can you just maybe speak to the 3.5% down with FHA is to be the borrower's own money. However, they can, what are some ways around that for young borrowers?
Well, PHFA, you can go through that and get down payment assistance. You can also
gift money is what I was thinking about.
Gift. Yeah, you can get a gift too. So FHA, literally FHA and conventional, you don't need any, like it can be all gifted money. I know years and years ago, you had to have a certain percentage down. The only difference with FHA is if you're getting seller help, the borrower has to have at least that 3.5% out of their own pocket. That can be gift money, that 3.5%, but the seller can't give anything. The buyer has to be able to at least put 3.5% down of their own money or gifted money. So just want you to be aware of that. FHA is the only loan that requires that. Conventional doesn't, which is kind of cool in one way, but right now it's not a seller's market. So, I mean, it is a seller's market, but it's not, you're not getting seller assist that much right now. So yeah, you can get it gifted, 100% if need be. Like I said, underwriting has more restricted guidelines with FHA, and I'll just get just a couple things I'll touch base. DTI, which is debt to income. Now, conventional loans, I can go up to 50% DTI. And the easy way to explain DTI is you make $1,000 a month, we can use 500 of that towards the mortgage and their other debt on their credit report. That's 50%. FHA is about 43%. So you can see out of that $1,000 that they made a month, I could only use about $430 a month. And that's basically on their mortgage and any debt that's on their credit report. So it's a little bit more restricted FHA. The other thing with FHA is higher LTVs, which is the 96.5%. And that's why the restriction in the DTI is a little bit lower, because they'll let you borrow more, but they want to make sure you're able to repay this money back. And I heard in 2021, that actually is going to go back up to what it used to be years ago, up to 50%. So they're going to be pretty competitive with conventional. That's another reason you're going to start seeing a lot more first-time home buyers buying with FHA power, because they can go up to 50%. And that's supposed to roll out in March of 2021. Not set in stone, just things I've been reading with Mortgage News. And that's the way it used to be. I mean, 2 years ago, I could run an FHA loan and I could get the borrower approved up to 56%, 56% DTI. They cut that when COVID hit, actually right before COVID hit, they cut that down to 43%. And some lenders are even more restricted than that, but we're at 43%. We'll go to 45% with an exception, depending on what the credit score is. But that's going to go back up to 50% next year and maybe even higher. I mean, FHA wants to buy more mortgages for first-time home buyers and for people that don't make as much money, and they're restricted on that debt to income ratio. So that's good news for everybody, really. The other thing is, like I talked about, seller can give up to 6% of the seller help, which is really cool. Not in this market right now, but if there's some, I'm still doing seller help, believe it or not, in certain areas. And then the
Glenn, this isn't something we see a lot, especially in a market right now where it's very challenging to win an offer asking for any seller help, let alone 6%. But keep in mind that you may not need 6% seller's help for your buyer. And so if you use Bright MLS as a buyer's cost, it will, if you put all your expenses in first before your seller's help, it will let you know if they need 6%. After, they may only need 5.5% or 5%. You don't want to ask for more money in seller assist than they need. And again, if you're doing it through Glenn, he'll run these numbers for you. But I know sometimes it's just spur of the moment. We have to run a cost sheet, and just be aware of that. I've seen a couple of situations, people had a lot of money they were getting seller's help and had to now find a way to use it. So anyway, go ahead, Glenn.
With the mortgage insurance, that's the life of the loan now. It used to be different years ago, but they made that the life of the loan. And the only way to get out is, like I said earlier, refinancing. Now, the reason that they do that is because FHA mortgages are more likely to go into foreclosure and default than conventional and VA and USDA. And the reason being is you got a customer with a lower credit score, higher DTI, maybe a first-time home buyer. So there's a little higher risk. And that mortgage insurance, what that does is that protects the lender, it does not protect the buyer. That mortgage insurance monthly is in case they default on their mortgage or foreclose or do a short sale or whatever it may be. That mortgage insurance would kick in and pay the lender the difference after the house was foreclosed. So that's why FHA it's almost like a VA. They don't guarantee like VA does, but they give a percentage back to the lender where the lender takes a loss. So that's why it's on the life of a loan. And what we went through in 2008 and 9, that was one of the reasons why FHA changed, that it's the life of the loan now. So just kind of a brief FHA. There's a lot of other things that FHA can and won't do. Again, if you need some more information, please let me know, and I'll specifically go over it. Does
Glenn,
anybody? But
can you touch just a little bit on condition issues and some of there's a handful of red flags as far as what an FHA appraisal will require?
well, the number one thing that I see the most, believe it or not, is handrails. So most people going down to their basement don't have a handrail. You know, FHA requires a handrail. They'll also, even if it's going up into an attic, they'll require a handrail. The reason being is because when you're coming down from that attic, you know, if you have steps, you could fall. So they're on the safety part of it. I see a lot of GFEs and a lot of things with electrical stuff with FHA. They're very particular. And the reason being is because the appraisal company is mentioning this stuff. Also, roof certs. Number one roof cert that I need are from FHA lenders. Don't see it much conventional. I have one right now. We had to get a roof cert, give it to the appraisal company. He puts on there, I am not an expert of, you know, of the roof determination. Usually they put 2 to 5 years or longer of the life expectancy of the roof, but they see deterioration or shingles that come off. They'll put a quote in there that'll say that, you know, I am not an expert when it comes to roof certifications. Might recommend that a certified roofer come out and certify the roof. If it says that, we need a roof cert. And that's what I'm seeing more and more of. Also foundation issues, like conventional will go down, look at the basement, everything. There's little cracks and stuff. It's not that big of a deal. Or even, honestly, I've seen it even with a little bit of water leaks from rain coming in. FHA, forget about it. They will mention everything. It could be a little puddle over in the corner. And then you're gonna have to have someone come in there and make sure that, you know, the basement is, you know, not continued leaking. Also, I've seen mold with FHA, and that gets into a big issue there, especially if it's black mold and how they have to remove it. So there's a lot of other things that FHA does do that
and chipping paint, and not just in the house, outside the house, the rear fence, the shed in the corner of the property, and bulging concretes come up as well. Anything health or safety related. I just mentioned, for those of you listening, look at the home carefully, well, and as buyer's agents, and make sure you're seeing these things, because they oftentimes come up right before closing. And if you have a seller that doesn't have the wherewithal to make the repairs, it can be a deal killer. So
when an agent contacts me and they say that, you know, their client has to go FHA, so did you see the house? Yeah, we just left the house. Well, they want to make an offer. Well, is there any chip paint on the deck? Is there any chip paint around the windows? Is there any chip paint up towards, you know, a lot of times you'll see it where the pitches of the fort, where the pitches come in at the roof. Any chip paint anywhere on the exterior, more than likely the appraisal company is going to mention it. And what I've seen a lot too with stone houses is that the way that the mortars sit, if it needs to be, I forget the term they use, where they have to reset the mortar. It's not coming to my mind right now, but it's actually, you have to go out there and reset the mortar, because if the bricks are crooked or the mortar has been deteriorated, they will have to do that too. I just can't think of the terminology what they use for mortar when it comes to brick homes. What is it? Repoint. There you go. You got a name, Marcia. So I've seen that a lot, especially in the cities. But I always tell that, and I always say, what's the roof look like? Is there any railings that need to be done? That way, you know, going into it from your buyer that they can ask for these things. Sometimes you wait till the home inspection's done, but waiting until we get in an underwriting, the appraisal mentions it, because he will. And then you got to have the seller scrambling around to get this work done, because then we have to send the appraisal company back out there. And that is an additional charge to your client. And it can be up to $125 for a reinspection fee. So if you want to save your client the time and the hassle and the money, just make sure you guys try to negotiate that beforehand, because that's going to, in the end, the seller's going to have to do it anyway. And it is actually a charge to your client, to your buyer, to be able to have the appraisal company go back out there for a reinspection. Sometimes they're only like $50, depending on how much work they have to do. Sometimes they're 125. And I tell you right now, in this market with appraisals are taking 2 to 3 weeks. And then you got to have a reinspection go back out there. You might delay your closing because the appraisal company can't get back out there to do the reinspection in time, especially if the sellers are dragging their feet getting the work done. So just food for thought there for you guys. Any questions when it comes to FHA? And here's one thing that I've seen over the last year. If you have a client who's renting a home and they want to buy that home that they've been renting for years, they have to at least be able to show proof that they've been making that rent payment for at least 12 months. And it can't be, it has to be either some type of canceled check or a check that was cashed. It can't be like on money order one month and, cash the next month. It has to be documented. We are allowed Venmo now. I think I'm saying it right. I think it's Venmo, right? I don't use it, so my wife does, but we are using Venmo payments of history of showing rent payments. But I have a client right now that we had to wait an extra month because they only live there 11 months and they have to be there at least 12 months and show 12 months of continuing rent payment. Only FHA requires that. So I just want to bring that to you. If you have somebody that wants to buy a house for sale, buy it, from the owner, and they want to buy that house, just make sure that, we cover that. Okay, next, VA. So VA used to be, and today actually it still is, VA is the loan that guarantees the mortgage, right? So more people that do VA loans, of course, you have to be in the military. That's the number one thing, or a spouse of a deceased spouse. The surviving spouse can use the VA benefits. VA is the number one less likely loan to be foreclosed on, and it's kind of ironic because they'll let you go 100% plus the funding fee financed in, but the houses just don't get foreclosed on. And one of the reasons is because it's, a lot of times they're on fixed incomes or they get a pension from the military and they're already working, with a job for many years and retired from the military years ago. So the income is a lot easier to sustain over the years because a lot of it's fixed income. VA is the only loan out there that will waive the funding fee. FHA won't. Their funding fee is a little bit different, but it's financed in. If your client is disabled, and it's a percentage of what military they were in, whether they were in the, National Guards or they were in one of the Army, Navy services, depending on what their time served. One thing about VA is that they have to be in it for 4 years. Well, technically, unless they're in active duty. If they came out, they have to show their DD 214 papers to me to show that they're actually eligible for the eligibility. And if they're in anything other than the 4 armed services like the Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines, they have to be in it for 6 years. So a lot of people don't know that. And the reason that I know that is because we came across a situation about a year and a half ago in Lancaster that we had that situation. And we were able to overcome it with a letter from the state representative, and he made the exception, which was pretty awesome. We got him involved, and he actually took care of it for us. But so VA, 100% finance rates, they're not as low as FHA right now, and they're not as low as conventional. But a lot of people like to get into VA loans because they don't want to put any money down on the house. The problem with that is that, especially since COVID hit, and I keep saying COVID, but it's the truth. It's hard to get someone 100% finance unless you got over 700 credit score. I used to be able to get somebody with a 640 credit score, which is Howard Hanna's the lowest award in the VA, 100% with a DTI of 50%. When I first came on board a little over 2.5 years ago. Now you can't get anybody under 700 credit score approved 100%. Unless they have some assets and some compensating factors. It's very tough. I'm not saying lenders out there can't do it, but we have to sell to like the Wells Fargos and the Chases and stuff. So their restrictions are basically is that if we don't get an approval online, we can't do it. VA, you can do a manually underwrite, but that's only with certain lenders and portfolio lenders. Howard Hanna doesn't offer that. Appraisal guidelines, they're a little bit less relaxed than FHA. They're still a government loan, but they won't nitpick stuff. I've not seen them nitpick a lot of like chip paint and stuff like that. They'll overlook it, kind of like USDA does somewhat, but they're very high on safety, just like FHA is. Roof, they're very high with electrical work. Railings, it just really depends what the appraisal company puts on there. I've seen railings not be installed in the basement. The appraisal didn't mention it, and the underwriter let it go. So it's kind of up to determination on what the appraisal puts on a VA appraisal. But VA appraisal is the only appraisal we can assign an appraisal to. It has to go into a portal, and that portal is down in Atlanta, Georgia, and we submit it, and then we get whoever to do the appraisal. What I've seen, and I don't want to scare you guys, but what I've seen, I've did 5 appraisals this year VA. 4 of them came in short out of the 5. 3 out of the 5 were done by the same guy. And this same guy told us if the selling agent or the listing agent or the buyer agent got us comps that would support the value, he would reconsider the value. And every time that we got him, he didn't use it. So just watch on VA appraisals, especially if you're getting into that escalation. And this is what VA appraisals look at. What is the offer price that was on the MLS? If it's $260,000 and then you get the offer accepted at $285,000, I can almost guarantee you that VA appraisal is going to come in at $260,000, $265,000. They just don't push the values like conventional or FHA or even USDA. Their certification is a little bit longer, and they have to be licensed through different channels. That's why they have to go through this portal. I can't reach, my processor can't reach out to a VA appraisal. We have to go through the guidelines to get to them, where if it was anything else, my processor could pick up the phone and talk to the appraisal company. So just be aware of that with VA. I've only did about 5 or 6 VA loans this year, which is not many compared to how many loans I've done this year, but I've seen out of those 5 that I've done that 4 of them were cut in value. Some of them were just a few $1,000s, not a lot. There was one that was cut by $22,000. He went with the MLS said the offering price was in the beginning at I think it was 260, 265. It got escalated up to 287, 290, something like that. And he came in at that 265 or 267 mark. So just be aware of that when you're writing these contracts, and for your sellers too, or for your clients that you're selling homes for, that they're taking VA offers. I'm not saying don't take VA offers in any way, shape, or form. They're a strong loan, but just beware of appraisal issues. And
excuse me, Glenn.
Yep.
May I ask you a question here?
Absolutely.
You can just take in some notes. Can you clarify the difference between the 4-year or the 6 years? For the Army, you said about the Army, the Navy, the Marines was more 6 years versus 4, and then also the name of the papers that you need to get.
Yeah, so with your Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines, if they're out of that service, they have to show what's called a DD-214, and they've been in the military for 4 years. And their discharge papers, which is part of the DD-214, will show honorable discharge or dishonorable. Has to be an honorable discharge, unless there's some exception, like health issues or whatever. But most of them are honorable discharges anyway. So that's the 4 main services. The other ones, the National Guards and whatever else is thrown in there, if they're out of it and not currently in it, they have to be out of it for 6 years. The only exception to that rule is if they were in active duty, during wartime, that they can do it within that 6 years. But if they're out and they've started into the private sector, into another job, and they want to use their VA benefits, they have to be out of it for 6 years with an honorable discharge. And that paper is called a DD-214. Double D-214.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Yep. And we take care of the lender. We take care of the eligibility. They tried to let the clients take care of the eligibility, and it was a nightmare. So now they went back to what it used to be, is that we run the DD-214s through the system, and we tell them if they're eligible or not. I can look at a DD-214 and tell you if they're eligible or not, just by the way they were discharged and how many years they were in the service. But there is certain things with all these government loans, and let me just put this red flag out there with all government loans. All government loans, we have to run through this system. And this system is called, it's a government system that checks for collections, back owed taxes to the government. Any type of, if they had a VA loan 15 years ago and they sold the home and they sold it for less than what the mortgage was owed, then they owe money on that VA benefit, they would be ineligible. Or if they have any type of default on any type of student loans, you cannot get approved through any type of government loan unless it's taken care of first. Let me just make sure of that. I had a deal in Paxton that blew up on us in Paxton earlier this year, where young borrower, first-time home buyer, had student loans. They were all in default. Somehow, 4 years ago, when Trump took office, he took them off their credit report. Like, all student loans that were default were removed from your credit report, so it wouldn't hurt your credit score. The problem of it is he still owed those student loans in default. When we ran this thing called CAVERS, because that's what we run to make sure there isn't any default on any type of government loans, it came up that he was in default of about $17,000. He tried for 2.5 months. Me and him worked with his VA assistant. We even got the state representative. We got everybody we could get involved in this loan, and he could not get out of default, and he didn't have enough money to pay down those defaults to zero. And it takes about 6 months of continuing payments before it comes out of default status. So please, when you're, and I go over this with the clients too, but just be aware, there's a lot of things on government loans that could pop up at any time. And sometimes the lender, us, we don't know about it until once it's submitted to the underwriter, and the underwriter is the only one that can pull this report. So, and it's called CAVERS. So just be aware of that. Any type of money that's owed to the government, we will find out. So I just want to be aware, everyone to make that, because a lot of people are like, well, why didn't you know this? Or why would it come up sooner? Because we didn't get all the information until once the CAVERS report was done, and the CAVERS report can't be done until certain things are in place. So I just want to make you guys aware of that. I try to get it done up front as soon as possible, but sometimes these defaults come up later on, especially when we pull their credit and it's not on there, right? So there's no way of me knowing. And I asked the client, no, I'm not in default. And then we get the appraisal in, we sit in underwriting, and then the CAVERS report is done again right before closing, and boom, it pops up. It wasn't there in the beginning, and now it popped up because somehow Big Brother found out that they're doing a mortgage, and guess what? They put them in default because they owed taxes, they owed student loans, whatever. And I've seen that happen a couple times this year. So just bring that to your attention with VA. VA is the mortgage insurance. It's not really mortgage insurance with there's VA. All they have is their funding fee, and that funding fee is guaranteed up to $36,000, depending on how many times they've used their VA benefits. So, an example: if they were to go into foreclosure and they owed $100,000 on the house, and the house was worth, just say, $90,000, that $36,000 would cover the lender. So they didn't have to technically lose any money on that loan, and that's why VA loans are very sought out after from lenders, because they're guaranteed. It's the only loan out there that's guaranteed pretty much 100%, which is really, really nice. But there is other things when it comes in the VA, and I don't want to sit here and take all your time, but how many times they've used it is how much the percentage of the funding fee is. The more times they use it, the higher the funding fee is. And that funding fee can go up to 3.6% of the purchase price if they've used it more than once. If they've first time, it's like they just changed it. I think it's 2.8 or 2.5. Seems like they change these all the time, but so the more times that they've used their benefits, the higher the funding fee is. I just want you guys to understand. And that's financed in the loan. Technically, VA is you can do over 100% financing because they're financing their funding fee into the loan. So there's only 2 loans, well, technically 3 loans, USDA, FHA, and VA that does that. But VA is the big one because that funding fee, I've seen 3.6% on a $300,000 loan, talking well over $10,000 that's financed into the loan for the funding fee. So right from the door, they're upside down on their home, buying the home, because they are that extra, funding fee money. So just let you guys be aware of that.
Glenn, let me interrupt because I had a client back in May, June, VA guy, and his DD 214 gave him disability, which should have waived the funding fee, but his certificate of eligibility didn't. And so he's been waiting 4 or 5 months now to try and get that funding fee back, which he can do. But
Correct.
they did realize there was something screwed up, being that he was discharged with a disability. So this, and I just posted in the chat room, if you want to go and see all the different ways you can qualify for a VA loan and how long you have to be in. There's a website for the VA. And
Yeah.
you can do it in as little as 180 days, depending when you served.
Correct. And great thing about VA too is basically when someone does a VA loan with the funding fee. So if they're disability, I should say. So if they're a percentage of being disabled, and it really determines on the criteria of the loan, but and how they're disabled, I should say, if they got hurt in the military or however it may be. The following year when they file their property taxes, now I'm not an expert on property taxes, I don't try to be, but they can get their taxes waived the following year when they have to apply every year for this. But a lot of clients that I've done in the past have thanked me later for giving this information. They didn't even know it. And they were disabled veterans and they applied for their property taxes to be waived. And a majority of them do get it. Not everyone does because it's based on income and it's based on a couple things, but a lot of people can get their property taxes waived the following year. So just food for thought there. Marcia, was you saying something?
No, I'm good.
Okay. So any more questions with VA? There's a lot of stuff to go over with VA. And like I said, just contact me and I can, thanks Toby for posting that. That's awesome. There's a lot of things that VA does do that I haven't even mentioned today, but I'm just trying to go over the basics. So PHFA. PHFA stands for Pennsylvania Housing Finance Agency. This is my #1 loan that I specialize in since coming to Howard Hanna. I do more PHFA loans in the Camp Hill office, in every office. It's just not one office. I closed 3 PHFA loans today. I'm closing 2 tomorrow. So the great thing about PHFA is it's a state bond program. So and you can go up to 100% financing basically in a lot of programs because they can get 4% or up to $6,000 down payment assistance. So let me give you an example. If you got somebody at $100,000 home they're buying, they can only get $4,000. It's 4% for their down payment assistance. If you have a client that has 150,000 plus, they get the max. That's $6,000 because 4% of 150 is 6,000. And PHFA does not go over that $6,000 mark. But that's really nice because first-time home buyers, majority of them have to be first-time home buyers. There is a program that you don't have to be, just the rates are higher. They technically go on 100% financing, and all they have to do is bring closing cost. The great thing about PHFA loans, you can go with a 620, with a 620 credit score and still get a rate in the 2s. You can't get down payment assistance. You need a 660 to get down payment assistance. You guys might want to write that down, a 660 credit score to get down payment assistance. And the rates are still in the 2s. I've seen there right now, if you have a 620 going FHA, PHFA, and you do not need down payment assistance, the interest rate is 2.45. 620 credit score. You can't find that rate anywhere. You can't even find that rate with someone with an 800 credit score right now on the 30-year. So if you're going down payment assistance, you need that 660. The rate's about 2.95. And that's for first-time home buyers. If they're not a first-time home buyer, that interest rate changes to about 3.75% with down payment assistance. And I actually closed one yesterday. It's called a KGov through PHFA. And it allows them to get that down payment assistance and still not be a first-time home buyer, which is kind of cool. Appraisal guidelines are a little, it just depends. So let me explain PHFA a little bit more deeply. You can go conventional and you can go FHA, and you used to be able to go VA, but right now we've suspended VA through PHFA because there's just some issues there. And you can go USDA through PHFA. So you can go just about every financing possible except for VA through PHFA. If you go conventional, you follow conventional guidelines. You follow the loan amounts, you follow their loan amounts, PHFA, which is about 281,000, and you follow their income base. So their income based with all of these loans with a family of three is about $81,000. They just changed that from 77,000 to 81,000 this year. They're going to change it again next year. It's probably going to be closer to about 86,000. So you cannot make over that amount of money to get qualified for one of the first-time home buyer PHFA loans, whether it's conventional or whether it's FHA. It doesn't make a difference based on income. And that's household income. So if your spouse is not going to be on the mortgage, they still count as income. If you have a child who's 18 and working at McDonald's, they count as income because it's household income. It's just like USDA. So just, maybe jot down a note for that. It's household income. There is a program called, I mentioned earlier, called KGov. They do only go off of the borrower's income. They don't go off household. So if you have a husband and wife and the wife's score is not the greatest, or the husband's score is not the greatest, and the husband is on the loan and the wife isn't, you don't use her income. We don't need to use her income. You can go through KGov. Rates are a little bit higher, and they don't have to be a first-time home buyer too. So kind of break it down a little bit. FHA, they go off of the FHA guidelines for the loan amount. Now, you're not going to get a $400 and some thousand PHFA loan pushed through unless it's a KGov, because most people aren't making, $81,000 or under, living in a $450,000 home. I closed one in Shrewsbury this year in June. It was the max. She actually brought the difference of what FHA was at that point. She bought a house for $460,000. She brought the difference down to what the FHA loan limit was. That time was like 400 and still a number. I think it was 441 or 435, or like I said, these numbers change a lot. But she brought that difference, and it was a KGov, so we didn't care about income. She made $120,000 a year. And we got it approved, and we went through PHFA. So there is some things that we can do and some things we can't do. Write this in bold. PHFA does not want flood. People that have flood policies, they will not do. And well, they do them, but this is what they do. So if you find a home in Harrisburg on 2nd Street, which I had one, and the flood insurance on that is $400 a year. So what PHFA does, it says, okay, on the private sector, it's $400 a year. But what we think it's going to be is $12,000 a year. So they take this crazy percentage of the loan amount, and it comes out to $10,000 to $12,000 a year. Not that your borrower has to pay that amount, but that's how they qualify. And no one's going to qualify on a PHFA loan when they're using $10,000 to $12,000 with flood insurance policies. Because PHFA got burnt too many times, I think, and they just don't want them. They don't want flood homes. Homes are in flood. Now, I've seen it where you can be in a flood zone, but the house isn't. Okay, the house is raised, or maybe the lower part of the property is. We can get around that depending on what the appraisal says. But just remember, if you're trying to go PHFA and it's in a flood zone and the house is, forget about it, because you're just not gonna get them done. Sellers can pay closing costs on PHFA loans. Again, depending on what program you pick, conventional 3%, FHA they can go up to 6%. So they follow the guidelines of conventional and FHA. And pest inspections. So you need a pest inspection, whether the client elects a pest inspection or not with PHFA, you have to have one. And the person who's doing the pest inspection has to be licensed to spray. They may not, probably don't even have to spray, but there's a BU number that each pest inspector has if they're licensed to spray, and we need that. So just be aware, if you're doing pest inspections, please make sure to ask your pest inspectors that they are licensed to spray.
Glenn, is it the same with the VA, that they have to have a pest inspection?
Yeah, any government loan. Yeah, well, yeah, VA, you have to have a pest inspection, correct. And if there's a private well, we would need a water test. They don't care about septic, they just care about the water test. So whether it's elected or not on the contract, which more times than none, you elect the water test to be done if it's a private well, but if it's public water, you don't need it, of course.
Is there a specific test that they have to have for the well? Because it's like 2 tests the inspector offers me, and I always take the cheap one.
There's 3 things that they're looking for, and I'm not the best of saying what these. It's like chloroform and 2 other things that they test the water from. They test it right from the spigot. So they send it away to a lab, and there's 3 things that they test for. Chris might know a little bit more detail than that.
I think the VA has a higher requirement in the water test. And the last time I just asked Brian Wentz about this, and he said that it takes longer to get those results back. So there is with VA, I believe that there's a requirement. Are they looking at heavy metals on top of E. coli?
Correct.
Harry's giving me the head shake. So
yeah, VA can go up to I think 6 tests that they can run of different tests. FHA is only 3 that they really need. So on a certain level.
And I know we have some experienced people here too, but one of the things you want to check with it, not to get on a tangent, but check with the lender and these tests and the time to get them back as well, because if they're sending away for water results and septic, these things will push out a little longer.
Correct.
And you don't want to be having to try to get extensions and inspection deadlines. It's just
you can have most of the water tests rushed. It does cost an additional fee, and I've seen that fee up to $100 to get it rushed, or $50 or $75. So just be aware of that.
I just had an easy one done. They got me the results back the same day.
Wow.
I see ours just took about 8 days to get back.
Yeah, it's different in different areas and who does it and what tests they're running. And so there's a lot of different ways. A lot of them, like I said, are sent out. But the number one thing too I see is that when we get these test results back, or when they order them, they'll say like test performed by client. And that client is actually your home inspector, whoever goes out there and does the water test. They send it away to a lab. And then that person becomes the client. So a lot of times I'll get the report back and it almost looks like the seller took the water test and gave it to the third party. It's actually whoever does the test, meaning whoever the client hired to go out and do the water test. So it's a little tricky when I get these things back and my underwriter says, well, did the client do the water test or did the inspector do it? Because it says client at the very top. If you look at a lot of your invoices, it'll say, water test, whatever, performed by seller or by a client. So we have to explain that sometimes. So it does take a little bit longer. Chris is absolutely right. In PHFA, just remember that it's a state fund. They do run out of money. Now, Governor Wolf this year pretty much gave the state of Pennsylvania unlimited amount of money for PHFA financing because he knew eventually once he lifted that switch back in March, this market was going to blow up, and it did. And I've done more PHFA loans this year than I've done in my entire career of 20 years. So it's a big product right now for first-time home buyers, and you're going to start seeing, it's younger and younger. Like I closed today on a kid's 22 years old, man. 22 years old. I can't, like for myself, buying a house would have been, but that's what we're seeing now. We're seeing younger and younger clients, and they're taking advantage of PHFA. And here's the crazy thing about PHFA. They know about it. They've already did their research. They know they have to do counseling. They know what they have to do. So they're educated probably than most of us when it comes to some of this stuff because they've already been on Google and they've done this. And a lot of times they already had their counseling certificate, and they give it to me before I even turn the loan into underwriting, which is awesome. They do have to do counseling, which is an online course. It takes about an hour and does not cost anything. So that's one requirement the PHFA does have. And that's really it. I mean, they do have the lowest rates out there. The only thing is we have to underwrite the file and then we have to send it to PHFA, and they're on about 48-hour turnaround time, but we'll make exceptions. And we do a lot. We're the second largest lender in Pennsylvania with PHFA. We've been for years, probably as long as PHFA's been in existence. Howard Hanna has been doing loans. I was at corporate last year, and we've got 30, 40, 50 like awards and plaques and everything for PHFA. So, and they take care of us when they see one of our fires. I'm not saying they put a priority there, but they hardly ever give us any conditions. Once our underwriter clears it, we can close like that same day. So it's kind of cool. Anything on PHFA?
Glenn, it's Marcia. Could you tell me what PFHA stands for again? I didn't get a chance to write that.
Pennsylvania Housing Finance Agency.
Thank you.
No questions? Did I cover it that? Was I that good covering everything?
Glenn, can you give us like a sheet that has, when we fill out your origination fees, wire fees, things like that, that lists, so, guessing about what it's going to be?
For a PHFA loan?
Or each type? 'Cause,
Well-
the origination fee, what's the origination fee based on? Is it
We-
just $1,000 or?
Here's the thing with the $1,000 bond fee is PHFA's bond fee they charge. They charge it on every file, it's $1,000. With that $1,000 fee with PHFA, Howard Hanna normally charges an $895 like underwriting fee and a $395 processing fee. Those fees are waived with PHFA. So we can't charge those fees. The only fee that's charged is $1,000 and that's payable to PHFA. All the other loans that we do besides VA, Howard Hanna charges an $895 fee and a $395 fee. This is what I would recommend. If you go into Bright, and I can walk you through this, I can set templates up for you guys in Bright and you can save them and you have all that information in there. The only problem is with PHFA, you have to manually put that bond fee in because Bright doesn't recognize it. But we can trick the system a little bit. I've done it before, but I can send you guys your templates up in Bright so you don't have to go and put all these fees in. And basically what fees that we charge Howard Hanna is pretty much across the board. I mean, I have probably 5 or 6 friends in the industry right now, and our fees are basically about the same across the board. The credit reports, underwriting fee, processing fee, and all the other
The
things.
guy charges $1,600 origination fee on a $140,000 loan, which seems
Well,
a little
that's
high.
that is a lot, and that could be buying down the rate. So a lot of times we don't charge any origination fees, Howard Hanna. Only time that we would have to charge is called a discount fee. And that discount fee is charged to the borrower to buy down the rate.
Yeah,
That would be the only difference. Or if they wanted to waive their escrows, there's a fee for that. So, but I see lenders all the time. I get call sheets all the time. I'm telling you, $4,000 or $5,000 in origination fees. Howard Hanna doesn't have any of that. The reason being is I get paid pretty much a flat fee. I don't make extra money by raising your client's interest rate. I did work in that platform years ago, and there is some benefits to it. But honestly, it hurts the client now more than ever, because now you have competing offers. You got like Quicken Loans out there. I mean, I've seen crazy origination fee, 3.6% origination fee on $190,000. And then they try to justify it as because the client had a 7 or a 680 credit score and they had to buy the rate down going FHA. Doesn't make any sense. I could have gave them that same rate. I could have actually gave them a better rate and not charged them anything on origination. But they're doing it because these loan officers can get paid per deal. And that's the great thing working out at Howard Hanna. I get paid, just pretty much doesn't make a difference which deal it is. I get paid the same way. I don't get paid an incentive to raise a client's interest rate. That's really taking advantage of the clients. And there's a lot of it out there. And if you find one with one of your clients with another lender and they want to give a second opinion, I can give them a second opinion and they can get a $100 gift card for at least letting me see if I can beat their rate. They don't even have to go with me. They just have to have a pre-approval with another lender so I can look at it and try to match up what they're offering. And I tell you, about 90% of the time I beat them. And about 60% of the time, I usually wind up getting the loan because they just feel more comfortable keeping everything in house. One roof, everybody's together. You can call me on a Sunday at 9 o'clock. You can call me on Monday at 7:30 in the morning. Toby knows, a lot of you guys know. Chris knows, Marcia knows. I'm there, available for you guys. Christine knows, Greg knows. I mean, there's a lot of people on this call that knows that I'm available 7 days a week. So I want to thank you guys for the opportunity. And there's some of you guys, this is probably like, oh man, this is boring, but for the new agents, at least it gives you some guidelines set out for the 4 programs. Again, USDA, that's a whole nother chapter. We can do that at another time. There's a lot of detail with USDA right now. And
I think the important thing, I think from a business development standpoint, just when you're interacting with Sphere of Influence or anyone else, and you can talk about these programs, and I couldn't I couldn't go into depth on a lot of the PHFA, and I think just being able to explain to people what their options are, what they can do, and then turning them over to the expert is what we want to be able to do.
And I know Christine we've done quite a few PHFA loans together. And she knows a good bit about PHFA. When you're talking to a customer and you know a little bit about this stuff, it just makes the process go so much easier, because when they talk to me, they're overwhelmed. They're making an offer. Do they really want this house? And then I give them all this stuff. Well, when you meet with them first, I don't usually, you kind of give them a little bit of, maybe a little bit of knowledge over it. I'm not saying get into detail like we did today, but I know a lot of the seasoned realtors that I deal with, they already have the program picked out before I even pull their credit, because they've asked them the qualifying questions to know where they qualify for. Conventional. They know they got a 7A credit score. They're putting 20% down. No brainer conventional. Okay, they only got 3.5% down. Their credit scores in the 600s. Definitely FHA, possibly PHFA. So a lot of the realtors I deal with, they already know the bucket they're kind of going to, and then I have to just take it out of that bucket and find out which program in that bucket they're really going to qualify for. So it's very knowledgeable for you guys to know this stuff, and it's going to make it a lot easier for your customers, not only to trust you, but they trust you more than they do me. So when you turn them over to me, they're going off your trust. And the better that you can make that trust and pass it off to me, the easier the process always is. And I'm telling you, these borrowers are more educated than they've ever been since I've been doing this for 20 years. So be prepared, because some of them you'll be like, well, that's a good question for my lender. Because they're coming with the knowledge already, which program that they think they're going to qualify for. Not everyone, but a lot of them are, especially the younger buyers. So, anything else? Any questions? Can be off this subject in anything, shape, or form. Well, I look to have a wonderful year in 2021. I have a new loan officer assistant starting, Kim Williams, on January 18th. She was a realtor for 10 years. She hung her license up in Lancaster and escrow just because she didn't want to lose them. She won't be practicing in real estate, but she'll be giving referrals out to all 7 or 8 offices in Central PA if she gets them, depending on where the customers are. She has a lot of people that she can refer out to the offices. She'll be my loan officer for probably about 3-4 months, and then she'll be becoming my loan officer for the Central PA region. She's going to be covering the Paxtang office, covering some of the Hershey office, and covering the York office. So, and I'm going to be there too, don't get me wrong, but look, this year's going to be a really busy year, maybe not as busy as last year, but what they're projecting is that 2021, the rates are going to stay just like they are now, at least until July, okay? Because the government's buying up all these 10-year treasury bonds, and that's really what drives the rates. Second thing is, you're going to have just as many buyers, if not, as you did this year, as next year. And hopefully there's going to be some more inventory hitting, as the months go past into 2021, and we're getting these vaccines out, and people are going to be, maybe downsizing, upsizing. We had a lot of activity this year. The industry itself did, I think it was $424 trillion, which is an unbelievable amount of mortgages, where last year they only did 300 and some trillion, and then the year before that they only did 200 and some trillion. So it's a big industry with mortgages right now, and people buying homes, and that's not just mortgages, that's incorporated into real estate. But they're projecting that this year is going to be probably close to what we had in 2020, except for hopefully without the COVID that's been holding us back some.
Well, I know over the years I've been in this business and in our family business, top agents are busy year to year. I mean, the markets change and top agents continue to sell real estate. So a lot of this is within all of our own control, how busy you're going to be. So keep that in mind as well.
And a lot of agents, if they're not excited to be in this 2021, I mean, I don't know, really. This was a great year, 2020, and 2021, I think it's going to be even better for a lot of us, because we're going to be able to not have the restricted guidelines that we had in 2020. We may not do as many sales as we did in 2020, but I tell you what, you're going to have a lot more clients coming to you qualified, because they're relaxing these guidelines a lot once these vaccines come out. and they're available to the public, you're going to see FHA is going to, you're going to be able to go 50% DTI. You're going to be able to expand these guidelines out. You guys are going to be able to see more inventory hitting the market. So I really believe that this is going to be a great year for a lot of you guys on this call. And the agents I've worked with over the last couple of years, some of the newer agents, they've lit it up this year. I mean, I can tell you office after office after office. And they use me, they don't use me all the time, but they use me a lot of the time, or they'll call me even if they're with another lender and they're like, the lender's saying this, call me. I don't take it personal that they use another lender. I'm here to help you guys in any way, shape, or form. Would I love to get to do? Absolutely. But you know what? At the end of the day, I'm here to help you guys, because by helping you helps me. And last but not least, we're rolling out our new software. I'm going to Pittsburgh on January 5th for about 4 days or 3 days. It's called Open Close. Open Close will give you 100% access to your clients during the mortgage process. You'll have your own username and password. You can go in and see where the file's at, see if the appraisal's been ordered. When the appraisal is ordered, you'll get notifications. When the appraisal's in, you'll get notifications. When it goes into underwriting and the commitment, you'll get notifications. When we get to clear to close, you'll get notifications. Everything you will have access to. It's all web-based, and the clients can upload their documents through this. They don't have to send them to me or send them to you and then send them. They can send them right into the system. I know Duffy and the Howard Hanna families probably spent over $4 million on the software. I'd like to say this with an explanation, is that it's kind of like with Rocket Mortgage, but with a personal touch, because that personal touch is me. I'm here to help you guys do it. But we geared that software pretty much identical to what they used. And my previous company did the same thing, but they failed miserably. They could have used this company that we use, and they chose not to, but Howard Hanna did, because it's very costly, and it's great for you guys. I mean, you don't ever have to worry about calling me, emailing me. I mean, you can, but you'll have access to that file from open to close. That's why they called it open to close. So I'm excited about it. Not excited about learning it as much, because it's, when you learn a new product, it's a little different, but I'm excited for you guys and the clients that you guys are going to be bringing in to have the access to it. And the great thing is, you find a client that wants to be pre-approved, I can send you the link, and they can just click on the link and upload their stuff, and I can get it, pre-approve it, and it's going to be a pretty much, I don't want to say 100%, but it's going to be a lot better pre-approval than I would if they were just calling me and I'm writing down the information and pulling their credit, because now I got documentations to back it up, which is going to be really awesome, and make the process so much easier for everyone involved. So great stuff coming for 2021, guys. That's it. That's all I got.
All right, guys. Hey, thanks for joining in. I'll see a few of you shortly on another Zoom.
Merry Christmas to everyone.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Glenn.
absolutely. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Glenn.
You might be thinking